So just to that one up, that was really, really grim beyond belief for Norwich City. In the FA Cup third round, they've drawn 1-1 here today with League One Bristol Rovers. It means that we're set for a replay. That game's going to take place after, or likely after, it's not been confirmed yet, but likely after Norwich City go to Hull before they welcome West Ham to Carrow Road. Just turgid, isn't it? Really turgid. And I thought this about this a lot since probably about the 60th minute. If I'm a match-going fan today and I've paid money to come and watch, to come to Carrow Road and watch games of football, whether I'm a season ticket holder or whether I've just bought a ticket today, there's absolutely nothing to get me excited or make me have that real will to come and attend and watch football matches at this place. There's no discernible style of play, really. There's no real quality in the team. They are tough to watch, poor to watch, regularly and consistently outcoached by opposition managers and teams, and they lack the verve and they lack the excitement. And we can, and maybe this comment comes up from Fraser. It's getting so I could record one of these and just replay it every week, and that's absolutely true. And it's a damning indictment of where Norwich City are at this moment in time under David Wagner. And to be at Carrow Road, to play Bristol Rovers, to name a team that they did, and that was a team that was more than good enough of beating them today. They haven't done that, and that is just not acceptable, and it's not good enough, and it's far too often. We spoke after Millwall. David Wagner described that as a below par performance. Today he's described it as a below par performance. West Brom, red card or no red card, they were outplayed. They drew against Southampton, playing incredibly negative football. There is nothing at the moment for Norwich City fans to feel enthused about. And actually, I'd go deeper than that. I would say at the bottom of all of this is a hopelessness about where they are as a football club at the moment. There's no hope, because you get to the summer, and look, I've written a piece about it today, and I think it's been slightly misconstrued about maybe what I've actually said. But for me, you can plead for time, you can want time, you can ask for time, you can say, well, we can't do things because Y won't lead to X quite yet. But ultimately, it's results, dear boy, or events, dear boy, events. And the events at the moment are so poor. I mean, it's 1 win in 6 now for Norwich City after a run of 1 defeat in 8. I mean, if you've watched these video verdicts for long enough and you've listened to our podcast and our output, I think we've told you for a long time, David Wagner teams are very, very streaky. They streak, and they go for a bad streak, they have a good streak, and they will bounce. And at the moment, they are in a bad streak, and they are producing stinking performances. That was a performance that stunk the place out today. For lots of different reasons. First half, they were, I felt, outplayed for most of the half by a team in League One. And that's no disrespect to Bristol Rovers, who I thought were excellent here today. I thought they applied themselves, they had a game plan, they stuck to it, they were well coached, they were organised, they probably should have won that, or certainly should have been leading at half time. But you see them zip it about, you see the attacking patterns, you see the movement. There's none of that from Norwich City. And this is a team in the third division. We're looking down and looking at that and admiring that. That should be everything that Norwich are at this moment in time. They're not well coached, and this is the thing. You can ask for time, you can want time. Time is needed, I feel, to get Norwich City back to where they want to be. But partially everything hinges on results, and it hinges on performances, and it hinges on fans having belief and having hope that their team can go somewhere and are going somewhere. And at the moment, Norwich aren't going anywhere. They're not. They're faltering. They're stumbling. They're existing. They're floating, and it is encapsulated in everything that we're seeing at this moment in time. Yes, Norwich made 8 changes today. They played players who haven't played for a while. They left out really influential players, and I get that. But you've got players in there who are vastly experienced, who have played in the Premier League, played lots of games in the Championship, who should be significantly better than what they've shown. And we can look at individuals, we can talk about individuals, or we can talk about the whole structure. And the whole structure at the moment, in terms of on the pitch, in terms of how they're coached, is not good enough. I was reading actually what today is David Wagner's 12-month anniversary as Norwich City head coach. I was reading some quotes from him about how when he was appointed, about how he wanted his teams to be proactive, to go after teams, to go and win the ball high up, to always kind of attack and to always take the game to opposition. And they're just not doing it. I mean, you look at the last half an hour of this game. Norwich created very, very little. They had a few flash shots that went over the bar. The best 2 chances of the half came through Adam Eder, and they were inside the opening 10 minutes of the second half. From there, Bristol City were content to see this game out. Bristol Rovers, sorry. I've just committed a major sin there. Bristol Rovers were content to see this game out, and they did so, and they did so pretty routinely, because Norwich didn't have the quality, and they didn't have the ability, and they didn't have the tactical understanding or coaching or the tools, really. I describe it as the tools. They didn't have the tools to go and break down Bristol Rovers. And that is, for me, the most damning indictment of this 12-month period, because everything that David Wagner wanted Norwich City to be, said they were going to be, they are none of it. They're none of it whatsoever, and that's really problematic for him and his long-term viability to be Norwich head coach, and that is the reality of it. And he knows that. He's switched on. There were chants today, and what I find about those chants actually is, we've had crowds here this season who have been season ticket holders. You always get a slightly different demographic of fan cup games. That's not to say they're any less passionate, but sometimes the age range can be significantly younger. There could be a lot of people watching their first game here, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But actually, for a cup crowd to turn like that is quite rare, I think, and again, kind of symbolise the real state of discontent that this football club is in at this moment in time. It's all very well and good me coming out and writing stuff about the future and all of that stuff, and at the moment that means nothing when the present is so poor, and the present is so under everything that Norwich City should be at this moment in time. They are a club who 18 months ago were relegated from the Premier League. They've still got parachute payments. And they are so short of a team who should be 18 months after relegation from the Premier League where they should be. It's mediocre, it's poor, and the performances aren't getting better, and they're not getting better. And that brings me back to the point that I discussed in terms of there are a lot of kids here coming here to watch their first game today. They've had to watch that, a really poor Norwich performance, uninspiring, very little spark, very little excitement to get your teeth into. That's incredibly difficult then to keep them on a journey at that young age, to want them or for them to want to come back to this place. And it feeds into this kind of hopelessness that I speak about, which I kind of feel, because coming to Carrow Road is a real chore at the moment. It is, and it's really difficult to watch what's being produced here. And that's on a consistent basis. And that's whether, they win 3-1 against Sheffield Wednesday, or whether they get beat 3-2 by Leeds, or, whether they get beat 3-1 by Blackburn, or they draw 0-0 to Preston, or they draw 1-1 against Southampton. It's that same feeling at the bottom of the pit of your stomach, which is, this is really not fun. I'm not inspired. I'm not enjoying it. And it's difficult. And it's difficult to stomach, and it's difficult for fans to accept when they've been, kind of blessed. And actually, Chris Sutton's column in the week, if you haven't read that, it's a little bit more related to the Southampton game and David Wagner's tactical setup, but I think more broadly it kind of captures where people are at this moment in time. And that is why, for all the talk of the future, I'm responsible. I've written a column about it this morning. I don't shy away from that. For all the talk of that future, and needing time to repair stuff, and I believe that Norwich do need time to repair all of the stuff that needs to be repaired. And what can't happen is you can't just get rid of someone without a clear plan. But actually, what it feels like now is that's becoming a distraction, that's becoming a sideshow, and that's not going to go away. And actually, it does more damage than it does. And what would be beneficial really is for that decision to be made. It should have been made a long time ago. And if Norwich City don't have somebody who should or is lined up or can take the job on an immediate basis, then it needs to be an interim, because we cannot keep going on like this. And I've said that about 4 or 5 times, and it feels like every time we're at the end of the road, and every time we just find an extra gear to keep the car going. And the way I've described it, and is you've got a car at the moment, right? And the wheels are knackered, the tyres are going, it's spinning on its wheels. It's not really going anywhere, but it's moving. And sometimes, it just jolts a bit, and then it can jolt back. But you've got a driver in that car who's struggling to get it to go, struggling to get it to motor. And in the background, you've got probably a desire to build a new car or to repair the car. And so in the background, you've probably got people working on a new engine. You've got them working on a new chassis. You've got them glossing up some new tyres. Do you then take the driver out of the car that is jolting and plodding and struggling to find its gear, and just chuck another driver in there and hope that they can somehow find something that will make the car move? Or do you wait, and do you put someone in that car temporarily, wait until the new car's assembled, and then put someone in that new car to drive that new car forward? It's so difficult, because ultimately, yes, I can understand the frustrations and the criticisms of David Wagner, absolutely. And anyone who's watched these verdicts, I'd say probably since the end of last season, will probably be able to convey my thoughts on them, on where Norwich are. And I think he's incredibly fortunate to have been given the time that he's been given. By the same token, what Norwich can't have is another sticking plaster. They can't have another reaction. They can't have another reactive appointment. So that has to take time. And then eventually, hopefully, when this new car that I've spoken about is assembled and it's ready, hopefully, to take the track, then you can maybe plot a driver in there that can take it forward. And I think hopefully that makes sense. It's probably a completely wild analogy, but I hope that makes sense. You've got two cars, one that's being built to try and improve, and then one that is a bit written off and needs to be replaced. Hopefully that makes sense. And then something in there about drivers. So that's where I am. It's this feeling that's engulfed the club at the moment. It's a real dark cloud all over the place, and it's so difficult to know how to shake that or shift that, because David Wagner isn't doing it. And we've seen that because he had a run of 1 defeat in 8. People were unmoved. We're having a bad run again now. People are still unmoved and entrenched in their views. And for me, it's so bizarre, because modern football is so rife with people, managers getting dismissed. It's a pretty common thing. It happens semi-regularly, and yet it feels like such a hard decision here, and it kind of always does. And increasingly, to me, this feels a little bit Alex Neil-esque in 2017, and they've got to try and avoid that. And ultimately, who knows? You replace it, you get an interim in, you get someone else in, and it can take the car forward. So it's who knows. In terms of the game today, the goals, Norwich take the lead. It's a good pass from Adam Forshaw actually over the top. Onel Hernandez gets to the byline, jinks a couple of times, and very unselfishly squares the ball for Ashley Barnes, who taps it into the back of the net. Bristol Rovers constantly had a threat. Norwich were open. They were quite poor in terms of their press. There was one moment they didn't get it right, and basically one pass bypassed their whole midfield. Poor coaching, I'm afraid. They get down the right-hand side to Vale, because Fisher gets dragged inside. Hernandez doesn't support him. It's a flash shot. George Long pulls off a save. Kellen Fisher then clears it out to Grant Ward, who with the outside of his foot bends it into the top corner. It's an excellent finish. And then from there, really, Bristol Rovers could have had another, and they should have had another deep into the first half, when there was an opportunity. There was a cross that came in. Giovanni Brown shoots at goal. So I don't know how he hasn't. I don't think he's quite connected with it properly. It allows George Long to save. Luke Thomas comes in and thrashes a ball against the post. And actually in the second half as well, Bristol Rovers had opportunities. Norwich had opportunities at the start of the second half. There was one from Onel Hernandez again on the right, does really well. Excellent cross to the far post. It should be a tap in for Adam Eder. I'm not quite sure how he's failed to make contact with it, but he has. And then there's a brilliant pass from Liam into Adam Eder's feet, and he flashes it just wide. But really, beyond that, that's all Norwich City created. And the last 30 minutes were painful, really painful. And that is, I'm afraid, a word that I keep finding myself using when I come to watch games at Carrow Road. Painful. And as a result of the performance, they've got a punishment, really, and it is a punishment, I'm afraid. And that's no disrespect to Bristol, which is a lovely city, and it's no disrespect to Bristol Rovers, who will be bang up for that tie, and they can win it, by the way. But it is a punishment for those Norwich players that they have to embark on that long trip. In the replay, this should have been a game that was taken care of in 90 minutes, and the fact it hasn't been, again, is kind of a situation that Norwich need to deal with. And you can ask for time all you want, but at some point things have got to start moving, and sometimes you have to make decisions, and you have to do that. So, yeah, I think this is a very difficult night for David Wagner. That's not me saying I expect or foresee anything happening. I don't on either front, but it's frustrating, it's grim, and like I say, it all comes down to that hopelessness that I think there is at the moment around this football club, because there's very little to be excited. Even, let's say, John Rowe, Gabriel Sara, 2 players there. Well, you get to the summer and they're probably going to be off anyway. So, I mean, it is a thankless task at the moment being a Norwich fan. It's difficult now. I think that's going to set the tone for what's going to be a really difficult week, and we're going to now look ahead to Hull probably with dread. And and with regret rather than maybe how we could and should be potentially looking at it. So there we go. Grim day at Carrow Road. Grim beyond belief. Frustration, disappointment, and it's a Norwich City team that you can't trust and that has a habit really of letting you down, and that's how I feel, I'm afraid. Pinken.com, the place to go to hear from David Wagner. I spoke to George Long after the game as well. There's going to be plenty on there if you can stomach it, but it's a frustrating FA Cup night, which should have been much different. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at Hull on Friday. We can do a podcast now to dissect it all over again. Great fun. Get me to Bristol on a Tuesday night. Come on.